Alright, you three have some explaining to do. Medivac,
Talk
you
to
dropped
me.
8 Marines onto enemy tanks to draw the fire of other tanks?
The weather outside is hostile with a slight chance of fog of war. Attention passengers, the local time doesn't matter since you'll all be dead soon anyway.
Fair, a fair point. Alright, warp prism. You cut off the warp-in of 10 zealots mid-warp. Do you have any idea how nauseating that is? No. I don't need your attitude, okay? Just stop. An Overlord. Whoa. Hey, there is no need for that. It is so hard to find good help.
I will bow to your experience as the fool.
Traditionally, transports in RTS games are just that. Simple, move units from one location to another. End of story. However, you will find that the transports of Starcraft 2 are a bit more versatile. Each faction has their own unit with its associated costs and respective uses. Starting off with Terran, the Medivac is produced from the starport with no add-on requirement for the cost of 100, 100, and 2 supply. 150 life, 1 base armor, and the tags armored and mechanical. Medivacs have 2 primary purposes in the Terran arsenal. The first puts the Medi in Medivac because they have the ability to heal friendly biological targets. Set to auto-cast by default, heal will heal for health per point of energy spent. In practice, each Medivac can heal roughly 12 health per second, but they require a minimum of 5 energy in order to start healing. Remember I said friendly targets, not just your units. Medivacs can be very helpful for that Zerg teammate of yours.
My meditation is over.
Additionally, Medivacs have an active ability for use, Ignite Afterburners. When activated, all of your selected Medivacs will have their movement speed increased from 3.5 to 5.95 for 4.3 seconds. This ability has a 14-second cooldown.
Ready for pickup?
Healing and speeding powers aside, the Medivac can also be used as a standard dropship. You can load units in via a right-click initiated from either party, or by clicking the load button and then selecting your target.
Picking up or dropping off? Watch your step. Understood.
Once loaded, simply click the unload button and select a ground location to unload your units. Finally, there is one upgrade I want to mention for the Medivacs. Located at the Fusion Core, Rapid Reignition System costs 100, 100, and does 2 things for Medivacs. First, the cooldown of Ignite Afterburners is reduced from 14 to 9 seconds.
Upgrade complete.
The second benefit is that all of your Medivac's base movement speed will be increased from 3.5 to 4.13. Take note, This upgrade does not change the speed during the Afterburner's ability. It's just their base speed outside of the Afterburners. The Protoss transport is the Warp Prism, made from the robotics facility for the cost of $250. The bane of many a Terran player, this bad boy comes with two modes. The default mode, fresh from the Robo, is Transport mode. As a transport, the Warp Prism is able to fly around, load and unload units similar to the Medivac, although its load function does have more range. Now for the fun part. The Warp Prism has a second mode, Phasing mode. After a 1.07 second activation, the Prism becomes stationary and will deploy a power field below its location. This power field has the same functionality as the Pylon's power field, which means that you can use Warp Prisms to both bring buildings online, as well as warp in army units from your warp gates. Good lord, how many times can I say warp in one paragraph? Lastly, there is an upgrade available for Warp Prisms at the Robotics Bay, Gravitic Drive. Costing 100, this will increase the movement speed of Prisms in their transport mode from 4.13 to 5.36. Now, Overlords are a little more complicated. Since they are the supply generator for Zerg, you don't really want to go around flying all of them into harm's way. They are morphed from larvae, to the tune of 100 minerals, and are little more than scouts while you're on hatchery tech. Once a lair is present on the map, any Overlord can be morphed into either an Overseer for detection and scouting, or a Dropper Lord via the Mutate Ventral Sacs key. For an additional 25 minerals and gas, the Overlord will enter a 12-second cocoon and pop out with spikes and sacs and whatnot. Gross. Ta-da! Your Overlord is ready to transport units. Load and unload units just like the other transports. Dropper Lords, like their normal Overlord counterparts, also have the ability to generate creep at their current location, as well as morph into an Overseer. However, the Overseer loses all of these benefits: no transport, no creep generation, and no ability to turn back into an Over or Dropper Lord. It does have its own abilities though, as well as an increased movement speed. Speaking of which, there is an upgrade at the hatchery, lair, or hive, Pneumatized Carapace, which increases the base movement speed of Overlords and Dropper Lords from 0.9 to 2.63, or Overseers from 2.62 to 4.72. Speedy buggers. As far as usage is concerned, they each have their individual strengths and functions. There's also some general tips and tricks to be aware of as well, though. Medivacs and Prisms are easy-to-use traditional transports, but are actually used much more for their other respective purposes. Having Medivacs with bioforces is a must for the healing. Warp Prisms are a key component of both army reinforcement and harassment for the Protoss. Sure, drop builds exist, but a standard match is unlikely to see extensive drop usage. Zerg players have to get so many different components to make their drops even accessible that it's probably the rarest to see. Plus, Zerg armies tend to benefit from numbers and surrounds. Drops don't really lend themselves to that. The most usage you're likely to see is one Overlord of Banelings onto a mineral line, or maybe a few roaches just to cause some chaos. Now for a few general tips. First up, planning your drop. Cargo space is something that all transports have to deal with. There's technically 8 spaces available in each transport, but some units will take up more than one space.
Let's go.
Small units, such as Marines and Zerglings, will take up only one slot. Bigger passengers, such as Roaches or High Templar, take up 2 slots each. And the most massive of assets, such as Thors, Ultralisks, your mother, Colossi, they all count as 8 slots, meaning just 1 per transport. Next up, let's talk about scan move. Normally, when you A-click with a unit, it's attack or attack move, but transports don't have an attack. The A-click for them is actually scan move. Click on the ground, and it's essentially a move command. Medivacs may heal units that they come across, though. A-clicking onto a unit, though, will cause the transport to follow the unit. Very helpful for keeping your Medivacs with your army without much manual control, or ensuring that Prism is always with your forces for reinforcement. The same can be done with most detectors as well: Ravens, Observers, Overseers. Next up, Q drop. We all know about shift clicking to queue up commands for a sequential execution. That works with the unload command as well. Simply keep holding shift and relay your command, and your transport will automatically drop forces upon arrival. Lastly, the ever-important drop while moving. To accomplish this, the unload command must be executed onto the transport instead of the ground. When executed, the transport will immediately start to drop its units and can still be given move commands. This is very useful for trying to spread out your forces, or evading enemy fire with the transport, or even helping those Banelings be sure to hug every worker in the mineral line. Given that transports have no attack, the discussion of counters feels a bit odd. What's next? You want to go pick on some innocent workers? Alright. Obviously, anything that can hit air units can deal with transports reasonably enough. If you're expecting drops, it's a good idea to keep a few anti-air options nearby for defense. A good example might be a patrolling stalker to spot and deter the incoming Widowmine drop. Static defense can also be a helpful deterrent, just try not to overreact. For eliminating the transports themselves, any long-range or mobile anti-air option should suffice. Let's talk about some faction specifics. Terrans, we all already know how good Marines are. The struggle is usually getting them close enough to the transport to let them get the job done. For a simple drop deterrent, you cannot go wrong with just 1 or 2 Vikings on patrol. Their long attack range makes them exceptional at scaring the notoriously skittish drop player. Protoss, let's talk first about the huge advantage that you have over the other factions. Observers. One of, if not the best spotter unit in the game. Just park one outside each of your base's drop areas and you can see the attack coming without tipping off your foolish opponent. The trade-off is you have less flexible anti-air options. Blink Stalkers are kind of the only reliable choice outside of Stargate tech. Archons are simply too slow, and High Templar Storms would be an arguable waste of energy. If you do go down the Stargate tech path, just get a couple of Phoenix or Void Rays to simply watch those potential drop spots similar to the Terran's Vikings.
Light flight's here. Dropping off.
Channel the light of Byun. Systems at full.
Zerg lovers, Overlords are awesome spotters, so long as you're willing to risk a potential supply block. The biggest issue you may have is actually shutting down the drops, since anti-air is so limited. Queens are obviously the go-to early base defense, but are not necessarily the best choice as the match progresses. You have 3 options. You can go Hydralisks, you can go for Sky Zerg, meaning Mutas, Corruptors, or Vipers. Parasitic Bomb.
Here's your stop. Talk to me.
Or you can go for the unspoken third option. Simply wipe out every other unit the opponent has, thus rendering the drops pointless. If there's no more Marines, 6 Medivacs suddenly aren't so scary, are they?
Understood. Let's go.
Transports and drop plays can allow you to catch your opponent off guard, or hit multiple places at once. However, splitting up your army is always a bit of a risk. Try not to fly into those 17 missile turrets. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful and that you have a great day.